Welcome to the Friday vlog.
Welcome to the Friday vlog.
And I wanted to let people know that I have a 10-day free course coming up called Rewilding Feminine Pleasure, and it's starting the end of July.
It sounds like a very exciting program.
I'll leave the link in the in the comment if you want to learn more about it, and it's also on our website. But it has had us have some quite dynamic conversations.
Is that a euphemism?
Yes. Because I really felt quite passionate about how pleasure is a term that isn't really used to describe that experience of well-being and peace that we have inside, and that when I use that word for you, you have a tendency to just limit it to a sexual connotation.
Yeah, I feel like, and I feel a little guilty because I feel like this has been something that's been marinating in your mind for a while, and now as we get closer to the kickoff date, obviously it's coalesced into this very brilliant program, and I guess up until the day today, I haven't really kind of like considered what you're doing, um, and I guess I feel a bit guilty about
What's
that.
going on?
I feel like I've been very busy, um, and you've been busy too on so many levels, but I haven't really kind of paid much attention to what you're doing, and I find myself feeling a little bit guilty about that because I feel like when we started to talk about this word pleasure, and I was seeing it very much through that lens of my own programming and conditioning, and I wasn't seeing it in a big picture way, and it's been very much a big picture um, way of looking at it for you, and I feel like I guess I could see how you would see that as being disrespectful, and I think that I just haven't really. I feel like I should have paid more attention,
Aw.
and I apologize for that. But I definitely, to be completely transparent, I think that I just assumed that it's some sort of. I heard that term feminine pleasure. I just assumed it was going to be something that had a sexual connotation to it, and it so evidently is not. And I so very much appreciate what you're pointing to and what you're creating in terms of creating an environment for women to be able to explore these themes and that theme in a way where they feel safe, in the same way that we might do an intensive when we might separate the couple out and go and work with them specifically. It's kind of like you're targeting that specific population and teaching the same things but in same themes but in a way where it's very much geared to that population. I really appreciate that. I guess I saw it through a very limited lens, and I didn't really realize that until today when we started talking about it. I guess I kind of felt defensive and criticized, and then I think that in my attempts to sort of justify my point of view, then I think it kind of rocked your boat a little bit because I feel like you heard me criticizing the program when really all I was doing was kind of like trying to sort of like justify my position and why I would use that word in that way. And you are just using it in a very general and big picture way. And I guess that's what I'm doing now is just sort of is I'm owning the way that I saw it in very limited terms.
Oh,
And that's
thank
you know
you.
that's my programming and that's my conditioning, and
Oh.
I guess probably a lot of people think that way.
Well, that is part of why I thought it would be good to do the program, because I do think that that term has got a lot of conditioned thinking around it, and pleasure is something that's just a natural feeling that comes forward for us that lets us know that we're connected with our essence. And there's such a habit, I think, in our culture to be so caught up in our head and not connected with our body, not connected with our senses. And so we lose touch with that inner guidance system.
hmm and pleasure should be a celebratory word. It's kind of but I can see how it's taken on those connotations that make it very limited and kind of like doesn't necessarily line up with the rule book that society presents us with. And you can start to see how pleasure just suddenly starts to look like something that maybe has to be earned, or is actually something that has a sort of more kind of a nature to it that is not acceptable in some way.
Or even that it's dangerous because it's associated a lot with hedonism, and it's like if we follow that feeling of pleasure inside of us, that's just going to put us on the wrong track, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think for women especially, I'll speak for myself, there's a lot of shaming on so many levels around our bodies, around our sexuality, around our enjoyment of sex. Like there's just all kinds of conditioning that has it look like we're not allowed to be these embodied, beautiful beings that experience pleasure.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how I was just thinking about that term pleasure seeking? That has a really strong connotation of being something negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it carries with it a lot of judgment too.
Yeah.
Well, in actual fact, it's just another one of those words which actually should be celebratory, and that pleasure is innate within each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And we should be embracing that.
Yes.
And now I see the virtue in your program is embracing something within which we are all blessed with, this
Yes.
innate.
Yes. And that when we're connected with that innate experience within ourselves, when we're connected with self, not just in a mental sense, but in an embodied spiritual sense, then we aren't really going to be seeking because we'll be connected already. And I think pleasure seeking, in a sense, is an indicator that we're not connected with what and who we are internally.
That's true, isn't it? It's interesting to sort of look at that from that point of view. That the seeking of pleasure is just a sort of redundant term. Pleasure
Right.
is within us.
Yes. And that the feeling of pleasure is a way to also connect with the fullness of who we are on the spiritual level. And that often people look at spiritual practice as having to be discipline and hard work and striving, when why not use pleasure as the portal to connecting with the expanded self.
And it is actually quite a beautiful word, pleasure. Sort of rolls off the tongue in a very serene-like way.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is synonymous with surrender if you really look at it in the way that you're pointing to it.
Yeah. Like we can't really be in the moment and be in like a controlling tight state. This is not possible.
And that's what pleasure is to be the opposite of that.
Yeah, surrendered, open, feeling fully present in the moment, and having all of our senses experiencing that. Like when I'm really present, it is pleasurable, and the colors seem brighter and the senses are more alive, and there is a really pleasurable experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. It would be in the Roget's thesaurus under well-being. Pleasure, I'm sure, comes up.
Are you a pleasure convert now?
I am a pleasure convert.
In the expanded full sense of the
Yes, in
word.
the expanded full sense of the word, very much so.
Well, we hope that you have a very pleasurable weekend and can enjoy just the pleasure of being embodied and connected with who you are and the beauty of that.
Hear, hear.
Take care.
Take care.